if a week is a long time in politics, 100 years is certainly a very long time. But I think this is sort of a message to Putin and to Russia that the Western European countries are going to support Ukraine for the long term. It's not just a sort of transactional thing. It's something to which we are deeply committed. We view Ukraine and its neighbours as part of Europe, and we're not going to abandon them. We're there for the long haul. We're going to support them not only in the moment with the conflict, but we're going to help them afterwards in reconstruction and embrace them as part of the European family and as part of European security.
The Prime Minister is in Poland today launching a defence and security treaty, saying that it's coming at a time of increased threats to Europe's security. Now, Sir Keir Starmer has travelled to Warsaw after visiting Ukraine yesterday, where he announced this new 100-year partnership with the country and increased help this year.
In 2025, the UK will give more military support to Ukraine than ever before. We have already committed £3 billion for military aid this year.
Now, it comes as today's Times reveals that the size of the UK military is unlikely to increase after the Strategic Defence Review. Now, the army is already at its smallest size since the Napoleonic era, and it's due to dip below 70,000 this year. Now, Sir Nick Harvey is a former Armed Forces Minister under the coalition years and CEO of European Movement UK, a cross-party organisation founded in 1949 by one Winston Churchill, aimed at preventing further conflict between European countries. So, Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And look, tell us about this pact with Poland. Why is it important for the UK to do this? What will it mean and why now?
Well, European security is becoming an increasingly concerning and important issue because the threat obviously is posed by Putin's Russia, but we face multiple threats, international crimes, cyber attack, the problems that flow from climate strife, the migrations of people. I mean, there are compound problems threatening Europe as a continent, and we're getting very uncertain notes on the bugle from Donald Trump, and we see some very strange things he's saying about NATO allies. He wants to take Greenland from Denmark, which is a member of NATO. So I think it's clear Europeans are going to have to do far more to look after our own security and defence than we have in the past. Absolutely part of NATO. Countries like Finland and Sweden haven't just joined NATO because they think it's redundant, but there needs to be a strong European pillar within NATO. So it's really good that Keir Starmer has already had these sorts of talks with Germany. We've already had defence pacts with France. He's there this morning talking to Donald Tusk about a pact with Poland. But what we really need is a pan-European effort. And I hope this is something that's going to be discussed when we have an EU-UK summit in a few months' time, possibly in May, and we can really explore what part Britain can play in European security.
And just talk to us as well about this 100-year deal with Ukraine, this 100-year partnership that was announced yesterday. What does that mean in real terms?
Well, if a week is a long time in politics, 100 years is certainly a very long time. But I think this is sort of a message to Putin and to Russia that the Western European countries are going to support Ukraine for the long term. It's not just a sort of transactional thing. It's something to which we are deeply committed. We view Ukraine and its neighbours as part of Europe, and we're not going to abandon them. We're there for the long haul. We're going to support them not only in the moment with the conflict, but we're going to help them afterwards in reconstruction and embrace them as part of the European family and as part of European security. And so it makes perfect sense to follow that up with a meeting with Poland, a very long-standing ally of the UK, a very strategically important country because it's out towards that frontier, and through its own conduct, a country that's a resolute and stout component in European defence, and quite right that we get out there and improve our bilateral links with them.
And look, just in terms, Sir Nick, about what's happening here, we have got this strategic defence review, and people are very cognizant about the fact that security is much higher on the agenda than it's been for a long time, for all the reasons that you've articulated. But it's kind of quite clear that it's not looking like the government is going to be likely to increase numbers after this strategic defence review, partly probably because of money as well. We are in a very tight financial climate. Is that a worry? I mean, how do you think the government should sort of navigate the kind of need to beef up defence and the very difficult financial climate we're in?
It is a worry, and you're quite right, they're between a rock and a hard place. We desperately need to invest more in our defence. People say we spend 2.3% of our GDP on defence, but actually about a third of that's on the nuclear deterrent. If you look at what we're spending on conventional defence, on the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, we're not really even keeping up with quite a lot of our European neighbours' expenditure on that front. But as we know, the government has inherited an economy which is in serious trouble, public services which have been starved of investment, and I don't envy Rachel Reeves her job, but at the end of the day, defending its people is the first priority of any government. And despite all the pain in these financial decisions that have to be made, I'm afraid more is simply going to have to be invested in our defence and security, because an army as small as we now have is not best placed to defend us and to defend our friends and allies and be part of a European defence capability in NATO, and we have to contribute more. So does everyone else.
Well, look, Sir Nick, really good to catch up with you. Very interesting conversation there. Thanks very much for your time. That's Sir Nick Harvey, who's a former Armed Forces Minister, and he is now CEO of the European Movement UK. And, of course, there'll be a sort of spending announcements coming up in March, and it will be interesting to see how much money is given to defence and whether there's significant increases or if there are indeed spending cuts coming their way.